Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
And today is episode 209 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/@2for1 studios. Guys, it's the best place to consume the content. And if you didn't know, listeners, and let's be honest, you probably did not, we are sponsored by Compile Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
One other thing I just thought of, I want to kind of talk about, Daniel, before we get into episode 209. If you go to I think it's the hutchfiles.com, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He has it set up now where you can basically subscribe, which is our good friend and colleague, Dr. Bruce Hutchinson, who's on the channel and hopefully be on the channel very, very soon on the next couple of weeks.
It's been too long.
Yeah, and I think you can subscribe to his great insights to script analysis and breakdowns of movies that we talk about here, just other movies he watches privately. And you can support and donate to that. And I will make sure I put a link in the comments or in the section below. I think it's the hutchfiles.com. I could be wrong.
That's right.
Okay.
I think his most recent one was on Whiplash, I believe, but kind of taking a different perspective on it than he usually does. So yeah, it's a great read. I recommend it. The Hutch Files.
So you also are subscribed through email through his.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, that's why I brought it up because I read the
Totally,
Whiplash one
dude.
last week.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anyway, guys, it's 209, and we are talking the best Star Wars show since never. So this is the Acolyte, and 8 episodes, I believe, maybe 9. I don't even remember anymore.
It was 8.
I've been very looking much forward, which is not a real sentence, to talking about the Acolyte, because that is how how I just said that is basically how the writing goes in the show. But I'll say this: I'm gonna start with positives. I mean, there's a lot of haters out there, and they have some decent reasons and some valid stuff, but overall, I think in this particular context, the fight scenes are pretty great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think I enjoy the fight scenes. I can at least find the goodness in that, and that's about it. I think ultimately the whole package, it is convoluted. There's just taking away the narrative, like the actual what's happening story wise. Just it's convoluted in the way it's told. It doesn't. The imagery is not super striking. Like, I mean, you can at least look at The Last Jedi and say there's some good cinematography there in that movie. There's nothing that stands out to me in The Acolyte in terms of its visual identity. The score there's nothing there that's super impressive to me. Visual effects are good. They should be for a $180 million 8-episode TV show. They're good enough. They're not perfect, but I'll take it any day of the week, that level of quality. But ultimately, the story is just lacking in a big bad way. And then you look into how it connects to the universe, and you're like, man, this is now when you watch episode 1 or those prequel trilogies, you have to think about this kind of stuff too. And I think it just makes the universe feel a little dumber to me, ultimately, I think. And a little smaller.
Yeah.
And I hope we do not get a season 2. And I really hope that they recognize that even though I watched it, I didn't like it. Like, I hope they don't look at my I hope they don't look at the Nelson rating on their Disney Plus app and be like, oh, that's a view. They watched the entire thing. It's like, yeah, I did, but I don't really want to watch it ever again. And it's hard. It's hard watching this and then reading this, the fan community and how divisive they are. And I don't think it's because of some of here's what I keep hearing. And I don't think this, but it's like keep hearing like vitriol, like space lesbians or whatever. And I'm afraid that people who like the show look at that kind of commentary and say, oh, you don't like it because you're misogynist or because you're whatever, racist or whatever, or just not a good person. And it's like, no, I just don't like this show because it's not very well made. And Night Sisters are fine. I'm cool with them. I don't care. I just care about good storytelling. And honestly, I was thinking this yesterday, trying to think about my thoughts on the show. Daniel, this is the last thing I'll say before I let you talk. Is I was like, I might need to watch this show before this podcast again because I need to make a list of all the things that just don't make sense and just add and keep going through it because I honestly, as I've seen all the episodes now, I cannot like I start thinking about one thing and then I like, wait a minute, this also happened. This character also did this the previous
Yeah.
episode. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And it almost breaks my brain trying to remember all like it's only saving grace is that every episode characters are so inconsistent and the narrative is so wonky that I forget the previous episode's problems because I'm hung up on this one now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a perfect example of this is like, can you explain to me why at the very end they're like, okay, Osha, we're gonna mind wipe you and we're gonna leave you here with all the Jedi and I'm gonna go off. And it's like, why are you leaving her with the Jedi? Why don't you take her with you and then drop her off somewhere? Like, why are you I truly don't understand some of the decisions these characters make in the show. And then
Yeah.
okay, I'll stop. There's a laundry list in my brain. But I want to hear your thoughts, Daniel. How much did you love The Acolyte?
Oh man, unfortunately, I didn't really love it at all. You're right. I wish there was like a setting or like a you can go into settings and say like I'm only watching the show for a podcast. You know what I mean? Like in your Disney
Yes.
Plus, like I'm only watching this out of obligation, not to you, but to my friend that we like to talk about this stuff with. Because like I was telling Catherine, I'm like, it's sad to me that if it were not for the podcast, I would not be keeping up with Star Wars right now. That's sad. I hate that feels real. That's real. I mean, like other than Andor, probably I would have still watched that, and then I probably would have watched Obi-Wan and gotten my heart broken still, things like that. But like, it's this thing of just like, it's not at a high level. It's not from a writing point, from an acting level, from a character, exactly what you're saying. Like, there's just so many little character logic things, or just things that make it feel, again, kind of like cosplay, kind of like fan, like made content. Like even just there's just things that almost feel like that feels like a decision you make on a show that doesn't have a good budget. That like you're cutting corners or whatever it is, and it's just it's frustrating in that. And yeah, like I can agree. There are positives. You're right. The fighting stuff was cool. I still really liked till the end, the master from Squid Games. I'm blanking on his name.
Soul. Yeah, Master Soul.
Yes. Yeah. Lee Jung Jae's character. And
I don't think he really did anything. His biggest issue is his attachment, but he probably should have killed that mom.
Well, that doesn't bother me. The way they just ended his character bothered me. It was just silly and stupid, and I just didn't find it interesting.
That's also a problem. I'm just saying, like, she's turning into mist, and then the other girl is also turning into mist.
And the way they did it too,
hurting her.
And the way they did it too, which honestly I have an issue with this, even at like a concept level. It almost was like he was just taking out his lightsaber in this direction. And like wasn't even intentionally trying to stab the mist or anything. Like they shot it, or at least it read to me in this way that it was just like, oh, it was just an accident kind of thing. He wasn't even really intentional, whatever. Which again is just
that, but it was.
But either way, it's stupid.
It was shot in a way where it's like, the way you do that is you have her mystifying, and you see the girl in pain mystifying the little girl. And you're like, oh,
and he's doing it to protect her.
That's the idea, is that he was trying to protect her.
But that didn't come across clearly. That's why, to me, it almost felt like, oh, did he just got freaked out and activated his lightsaber by like instinct response or something. Yeah. Either way, though,
it tells you right there the problem is that it's not well done.
The original conflict, the original sin of this show that starts the events that lead up to the present is this. I really don't like it when it's this like, oh, it was all by happenstance. It was all just an accident. It was all this like small misunderstanding. Like I guess for that to be the reason, and then for him to like basically like not fight back when he's being like force choked. Like that's like his. And I'm just like, part of me is just like that. That just, I don't know. That doesn't feel compelling to me. That feels like the
It's
most boring version of this. That like
it's very melodramatic to be like it's okay as someone's killing you.
it's melodramatic in a like unrealistic, uninteresting, boring, in like a like
Yeah.
roll my eyes way. You know what I mean? Like it's like this isn't like good drama. This is like weird interpersonal drama type stuff that I feel is beneath Star Wars, to be honest.
Well, we didn't even talk about, and I forgot we haven't talked really since the first few episodes about this, but
Yeah.
I mean, even like I think it's Trinity, but they end up being it's like a Matrix mind wipe, and they kill all the sisters because they're all like linked together or something, and then she does the thing, and they all die. That's how they're all spread out. You know, we were criticizing like, why are all these witches dead like in a circle? And it's because they were like inside that person's mind, and then I guess they lost connection, so they all died because they lost the connection. Just
Yeah, that feels so
really,
flimsy. Like and just
really
like silly.
weird stuff.
Like where it's like we're supposed to be getting this show where it's like we're showing the flaws of the Jedi, and then every time there could be an actual potential flaw, we're like explaining it away of like, oh no, they were like it was an accident, or like she was just protecting her friend, she didn't know she was gonna kill all those witches. Which fair, yes, I agree, but that's the least interesting version of how these events could have gone. Honestly,
Yeah.
like if we're
And
trying
it's
to
just so
explore
stupid.
this like gray area Jedi stuff, I agree. And even the thing at the end where she like lies about like the final lie where she's lying to everyone that it was, you know, Master Soul that killed was like a serial killer, right?
Yeah.
And like blames it all on him. And I don't understand the logic of that. I don't understand why they don't say, yeah, there's like, first of all, we find out essentially that her apprentice is the dude, right? So,
And it seemed like
so
a long time ago, and that
so
his
what
life had been
happened?
prolonged in some way. Yeah.
So what happened is an actual former Jedi went rogue and started killing people. But we're going to tell a lie that a different Jedi that didn't actually go rogue went rogue and killed people. And I'm just like, what is the benefit of this lie? Everyone's still mad. Everyone still wants to like have a public review of the Jedi or whatever the fuck. So like obviously
You're right,
if that was the intention to like that didn't work. So like either you're an idiot or like it just is this like, and it just feels like this like, ooh, like here's the Jedi being bad or like whatever. Like it just has this feeling of just like like let's just throw something unexpected at the end and make the Jedi even more corrupt or whatever the fuck it is, and it just doesn't work. It just to me is just like that I don't get the point of that. I don't. What did that help you do? What did that prevent from happening? You
There's a
didn't.
couple of
If
things
there
there.
is something, you could have maybe drawn it out to be like, oh well, if they knew that there was a dark Jedi and we were aware of it and weren't hunting them down, they could be mad and want to dismantle the Jedi or something. But you
The
don't
only thing I
spell
could
any
think
of that
of
out.
is
You
that
don't give me that.
they got away, and that they failed, and that she didn't want to have another failure. So she like maybe she wanted to wrap it up so that they could less damage. But I mean, I mean, obviously, yes, she's a really
Sure.
bad
Okay.
Jedi
That
because
she
now
lied
you're
because they want to
Yeah.
wrap it up. They don't want. They were like, it's not an ongoing. We're not. I guess they lied because they don't want to chase after him. Like
I
that.
guess
They don't.
I
They
think
don't
it's
want to
awful.
keep trying.
I think it's a
Um,
terrible decision.
But
And also,
it doesn't make sense. Like to me, it's not like
well, I think she also did something she wasn't supposed to. I think his marks on his back are from her light whip. Is what that's from. So I think if he gets caught and he's not killed, then maybe it also makes her look
oh
even worse. Like, what did she do to him to make him go to the dark side? Because that's his whole thing. Is he had a master, the master was not great to him, and so he left. Or at least told him
I
things.
didn't put those two things together. That's like this the light whip and the scars.
Yeah, so that's I'm assuming.
Interesting.
I'm
I mean,
assuming
but
that's
that,
what
but that
that's
could
from.
also. I mean, like, listen. I mean, Kenobi left Anakin half burning and dead, and no one really credits him being wrong on that part when Anakin went, you know, murderously crazy. So there's a version of
Yeah.
events where he goes Sith first, and then she fights him off, you know, trying to whatever. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, you can make characters make bad choices, like make like immoral choices. But to me, if you're not motivating that logically by some sort of like clear self-preservation or some kind of clear conflict of interest or something like that, that just makes it be like, oh yeah, I would have a hard time making that decision too. It just feels performative, and it just feels like this is the show where Jedi make great decisions and are
Well,
bureaucratic and political. And it's just like,
some of these things could have worked, but
yes,
a lot of it boils down to the structure in which they told it. Though how you fix what we're talking about right now with Vernestra, is her name
sure,
Vernestra? Vernestra and Kamir, is you have her in episode 1 or 2, you reveal that she basically hurt him in some way, or she
sure.
was not a great Jedi or something, and she's like flawed. And then it's like now you know her motivation the entire season, and it makes more sense when we get there versus this like J.J. Abrams kind of lockbox where they're trying to dolly out information, but all it does is frustrate people. I know what the showrunner's saying, like just wait till next episode, your answers will be revealed, or wait till next season. It's like, look, that works, and that works if it's done correctly. But also, I will be surprised if you get a season 2 now. So now you have these threads that are not answered, and we're like, well, you have people like us online saying like this is stupid, this doesn't make any sense, all these kind of
Yeah.
things. And again, it really feels like someone watched episode 1 or the primary episode 1 and was like, oh, Palpatine, the rule of two, oh, Darth Plagueis, like there's a legend thing, oh, like this and that. And it's like, let's just try to explain these in like the most ass backward ways and
Yeah.
try to shoehorn in things that weren't necessary. That doesn't make things work. Like, oh, why is there tension between the council and politics? And it's like not because, you know, it makes it less interesting. It makes episode 1 and the conflicts that are happening less interesting. Like, oh, it's this thing that happened 100 years ago where there was a rogue Jedi and it was killing people and they were already kind of snooty, the Jedi were, but it doesn't add anything that makes it
No.
that like I don't need to know that this, like if I didn't know the story, episode 1 still works, right? And that's good.
Yes.
I'm saying it doesn't like tell me a perspective that makes everything
Make
better.
more
And like here's
sense. Or
yeah,
yeah,
and like
yeah,
oh like
right.
and of course as we're watching this, I'm thinking, man, where's Yoda at? Where's the rest of the council? Why are these things not happening? You're telling me that Yoda does not sense all these Jedi being killed?
The
You're
amount of
telling like
Jedi
what
that are not aware of what like people are doing when they have the Force in the show is like constantly like, oh, I'm unlocking my little thing over here. What, you're a Jedi? What, you would sense? Like, I don't know. There's little things like that all the
they just
time
don't
where
understand the
the Jedi
force.
do not seem competent in this show. And that is
No, no,
not,
no,
you know,
no.
that is something, you know, you think back to like episode 1, like Qui-Gon Jinn,
Qui-Gon,
and
dude.
like the coolest, and even Obi-Wan in the next few episodes, like, you know, they talk about how in movies, like one of the ways to make us really like a character is to make them exceptionally good at their job, right? That's
Yeah.
like a not a trope, not necessarily a trope, but that's a technique to like, we like watching characters that are like the best of the best at what they do, and like kind of the quiet, confident, don't need to brag, but are like literally the best kind of people, like Jason Bournes, you know, these people that like just are automatic and no one can beat them and they're just literally the best. And like that's part of what is cool about the Jedi Order, is that they were kind of these people that like they did think of most everything, right? They weren't absent-minded, they weren't idiots. They did think through a lot of things. They had a blind spot, and a really smart and really powerful Dark Lord found it and found a way to exploit it. But they weren't idiots.
They weren't, yeah, and
They were the
that's what makes it more
most badass mother effers in the whole universe, and
that's
like
what
no
makes it
one
so much more compelling because
exactly.
they're capable and they're smart and they had their one weakness used against them, which is their kind of their pride mixed with their lack of attachment. I mean, like it was,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
exactly. They were
All these Jedi have
someone.
attachments. All these
Yes,
Jedi have attachments. And then, like, here's the like, just to support your theory, I'll say this and let you keep talking. What about the Jedi or the apprentice or whoever that like gets sick when they go to hyperdrive? Like he starts throwing up,
yeah,
and it's like okay, like I can see someone be like it'd be cool or different if there's a character,
sure.
but it gets sick every time, whatever. I'm like, it's kind of a comical thing, but also it's like this is Star Wars. It's like maybe if like technology is invented tomorrow, there'll be people who can stick, but these people have been. This is how you travel the universe.
Yeah,
And like
yeah,
I drive every day and I get car sick, but like it's just It's never been a thing, and it's just a weird thing to add, and you're making them a little lesser. Like you're
Yeah,
making
it
them.
just in front of it just wasn't funny or anything like that,
Well,
dude.
I mean,
And
I'm not
honestly,
like
that one
I'm not
Jedi
down the
she's
hill.
talking to with like the pomp up little hair did not feel like a Jedi to me, man,
No,
at
at all,
all,
at
at
all. None of them do. I
all.
mean, Soul
Like
does.
Soul
Soul,
does, and
Trinity.
there was a few
The,
other ones. Honestly, even like some of the ones that Yord Fandor, he seemed cocky, but he also seemed really competent, and he
I like the
seemed
order.
powerful, and you know what I mean. And like it was a big deal when he got killed, and even his apprentice or
Daphne Keene. Yeah,
yes, yeah. She felt very competent, especially like for her age. And I just think,
I liked
yeah,
her too. I didn't like her romantic connection to May or Osha, but I mean,
or
it felt
whatever
like there
that
was.
was. Yeah.
I was like, why? You're a Jedi. Like this
Yeah,
is
I
supposed
didn't
to be
that
why
that was strange. But either
you're
either
telling me
way,
that. Yeah,
it's just,
yeah.
it doesn't make it cooler. It makes it frustrating. It makes them seem more competent in ways where it's like, why weren't they exploited sooner? Why didn't the
100%.
downfall come hundreds of years before this if they were this like corrupt and blind and like idiots
Yeah.
running the show? You know what I mean? And also like just that like all the lore stuff, all of that is unfortunate and frustrating and stupid. But then just even at just like a story character level, when I get to the end of the season, I just I don't really care about any of these characters at
No,
all. Like I just don't care
no.
about Osha and May. I don't find them to be
They're,
interesting. I find their
it's
relationship
not.
feels they don't feel like real people at that age. They
No. I
they're
don't
just
understand their logic of
I
like,
don't know like
I'm
why
going
are
to
we
kill
supposed to
you.
care
I
about
love you. We're
right, and they just
together.
keep flipping roles. One's the good, now there's the one's the bad. And I
Yeah.
think yeah, it just they
There's a
didn't give me any
metaphor there, like
reasons to
they're the
really
same. Yeah, there's a metaphor that they're the same person, and that they're like internal conflict. Like one person having two sides conflict with each other, but it just doesn't work
but
in this
even that
context under this narrative. It's awful. It's not
no,
good.
it just I just don't care about them as characters. I don't care what happens to them. I
No,
don't care what
no, no,
either of
no.
them. And I just think honestly, most of the time, it's hard other than like the freaking Parent Trap. It's hard for me to think of any time we have two characters play the same person as twins where it makes it more good. And
Well,
and it's
the
just
sh the
I don't
showrunner
know.
come out. And remember this one that they switch places, like to your point, Parent Trap,
Yeah.
and they're like, she's with
She cuts off her
Camille.
braids.
Yeah, yeah. And
Even that
so
looked dumb. Even that looked like it looks
yeah,
like they were attachable right there to have.
yeah.
It's very convenient that you do one swipe and now you have the exact haircut of your sister.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. Well, Soul takes her, right, and then Kamir takes Osha, and
yes.
so
Yeah.
immediately Kamir's like, "Oh, you're not May," right? And then Soul does it, but Soul's a Jedi, and he's been with his Padawan forever.
Yeah. It makes no
And
sense.
well, listen, and then the showrunner came out and said, because by the end of the episode, Soul figures out it's her. He's
Yeah.
like, "I'm gonna," because he pins her down,
He
has her
stuns her.
trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the thing, right? The showrunner came out and said, "Yeah, I think Saul knew the whole time. Like, he's a Jedi Master.
You
Why wouldn't he?" I'm
think?
like, this is total damage control. Like, he did not know.
You
Like
think?
the
Why
she was
would you
just
not the show? Why would you not know?
yeah. I don't know, but I'm just
I
saying.
don't feel
Yeah,
like the showrunner should be interpreting the media. The showrunner should be the one knowing
yeah.
what they intended. And you know what? If they want to let people interpret it more than one way, that's one thing. I like,
Yeah.
Nolan is like, he lets people interpret things. I feel like and doesn't like giving as many answers.
I'll give
But
her a
like,
pass on that because
it's
I'll
different
say
than
sometimes like, well,
saying,
I think it's like this. Like, I think it's like this
but if you
versus.
wrote it, it's like, oh, I
Well, I
intended
could.
it. You know,
Well, I can see in a Q&A someone saying, "Hey, why does this character do this?" And I say, "Well, I think their motivation is like this." So it's kind of like
okay, that's fine. But
I
it
can
just,
see that, but
I
I
don't know.
agree with you to the fact that it's first of all, it's not how it's presented at all. Like the little furry dude who is more competent than some of the Jedi, he is
Yeah.
like pointing over here, those kind of things, and then it's not until that happens that Saul actually apprehends her, and it's like, so you're and it just if it was the intention that Saul knew the whole time, it did not come across at all. Make
No.
him look really stupid. So I
And they
mean,
could
like,
have done it in a way. They could have done it in a way where he's like intentionally
yeah,
making her lower her guard and he
Yes.
uses that to capture. It's not that. It's like she leaves the room, and in the last conversation, maybe her reaction to something made him suspicious or something. Like it was very much telegraphed as like he was unaware, and until she
100%.
tipped him off in some way or something. And yeah, I agree. It
Yeah.
just it's
not
just another
good.
example of where it's just like you give me cool Jedi, but then you make them less cool the more I'm around them. You know what I mean?
I like Saul until the end when he died. I mean, I loved like when Kamir
Yeah.
threw the double lightsaber and he like that was cool. Like that was a cool moment.
Yeah.
When he
yeah.
like did his spin thing and like knocked him back. Cool shit. But then it's like, okay, then we talk about her bleeding the lightsaber
Whatever.
and all these kind of things.
I don't care. It's just like I don't care about her.
Well, I mean, it's like these things like, oh man, we're getting this for the first time in a Star Wars live action. Same thing with Plagueis, but like it means so much less because I don't care about this.
It is
character.
confirmed that guy was Plagueis. We know that for sure.
Yeah, it is 100% confirmed. And whenever I saw it, like as soon as I saw his face, I said, "That's Darth Plagueis." I was like, "Holy shit, he's Darth!" That's Darth. Only because I've seen the cover to the Darth Plagueis, whatever the book's called.
Yeah, okay.
It may be called Darth Plagueis. Because I immediately knew. But so you're telling me that Darth Plagueis is on this island, hidden, like looks like he's creeping on Osha and Kamir.
Yeah.
And it's like, so he's getting the idea of like, okay, she was made from a convergence in the force or virgins in the force. And now from these two, he's like got the idea that he's going to create life, which is why, if people don't know, Darth Sidious tries to make a force, like make the ultimate Sith, basically tries to create life. He's also trying
Sidious.
Plagueis. So he's trying to do that, right? His Padawan is, or his
Sidious.
apprentice is Sidious.
Yeah.
He's trying to do that. He fails in doing it. He doesn't succeed. And the Force answers back like, "Oh, you tried to make a Darth person. We're going to make Anakin." So the Force makes Anakin. That's like the confirmed thing. After we talked last time about Palpatine potentially doing it in that comic book, I did some deep diving, and this is the truth. So
this is based on current lore or old canon?
Current everything. Okay. This is it. This is the gospel. Darth Plagueis tried to create a Sith. The Force said nope, and they made Anakin in return. And with a Shmi, a virgin birth, it wasn't Plagueis that made, or Sidious or Plagueis that made Anakin. So then, and I didn't know this till recently, but Darth Plagueis is, I never read the book. I owned the book, never read it. But Plagueis is killed during Episode 1, actually, in old canon. So that's when he died, is when that's going on.
By Sidious?
By Sidious kills him in his sleep.
Yeah.
And then it's like 15 years later, or I don't know how long, 8 years later, when Sidious tells Anakin about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. But it just like, this is, okay, so you're going to have literally a 5-second shot showing Darth Sidious, which, I mean, I know who it was, but you're tying this shitty storytelling to things that fans want or care about. And it's like,
but it's not in a cool
interesting.
Way. It's just like,
cool way.
One shot.
In a
or
cave.
2 shots, a hand and in the face, and then like
he's supposed to be like one of the biggest Darth Sith lords of all time.
It's just like
2 or 3.
Why even do it if that's all we're gonna do? Like it didn't really add anything to the story. It was just a just a fan service. It was fan
season
service,
2,
right? I guess,
to get fans talking. That's what it was. But it just ultimately it doesn't work, and like it just they're there. You know what a great show would have been. First of all, not having the showrunner Leslie Headland, whatever her name is, Headland, not having her in it, but having a story about Darth Plagueis trying to figure it. Like,
we should have got him. Why aren't we getting a Darth Plagueis origin story? Why is that not what we're making our movies about or making our TV shows about? Like, just show us why he became Darth Plagueis.
Yeah, why?
I mean, you might have to hire some
characters.
good writers and showrunners. I know that might cost more than you want to pay, but like, it's just like, I mean, like, surely there are talented people that can be given this much money and tell interesting it's weird, this thing of like, it's also like in some ways they're tiptoeing around these big things in canon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's almost like, the events of the show I mean, Darth Plagueis is already being Darth Plagueis in his little caves and shit.
Yeah.
This isn't the reason we have Darth Plagueis. And I mean, I guess you saying this is how he found out about the convergence. I mean, maybe that's a big assumption. And like that like it's almost like this like
Well, he's clearly interested in Osha, right? Like Osha and Kamir.
Sure.
And their conflict. Like and you would maybe assume Kamir also knows Plagueis is there.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
his
exactly what
master.
I'm assuming. That was I was assuming is that like that's actually Kamir's master, and in some ways, you could almost read this as like, you know, the typical thing with Siths is you've got a Sith and a master, and then the Sith eventually finds someone he wants to be apprentice, so he kills the master and takes an apprentice.
You don't have to read it that way.
Right?
That's actually how it 100% happens every time.
Exactly. So could this just
Yeah.
be like Plagius spying on Kamir because he's watching Kamir trying to raise up his own apprentice so he can? I mean, like to say that, like you're right. There is a reading of this where it's like this is why Plagius got the idea. But if this is that, this is such a stupid and weak way to do it, and you're not even fully committing to that idea that like, oh yeah, this is how Plagius figured this out, because you're doing it in such a half measure way that it's just like. I mean, I guess we can assume that, but we're doing a lot of assuming with not much evidence and not much real reason to. So it's this weird, like, we're tiptoeing around these big characters and these big kind of themes and things that led up to like the iconic movies, but we're not actually like having the you know, they won't take it all the way. They won't just do it. They won't just give us the Plagius background story. They won't just tell us a story of that character and cast somebody like freaking Jude Law or some like amazing actor that could like play this great turns from good into like, you know what I mean? Like, give us
funny you said
Academy Award-winning actors and shit.
He's
and
literally in Skeleton Crew as like a
I know. I think that's why that came to me. But like again, and why is he in that in freaking a weird ass like? Isn't that a kids show? Skeleton Crew.
I would assume it's like the Goonies meets Star Wars.
Yeah, so it's aimed for younger than this, I guess. But this felt like it was PG. You know what I mean? Like anyway.
They're also in love by the end, Daniel. It looks like they're like in love with each other, Kamir and Osha, for whatever reason. Not quite sure why, holding each other's hand and stuff, but
yeah,
I guess because she saw him in the ocean naked. But here's my other issue with this, is so it's like, okay, I don't know this. Put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you his power levels. To me, Darth Plagueis is one of the most powerful Sith of all time. Like him, Palpatine, Darth Vader, maybe Darth Revan, Darth Bane. And you're telling me he can't create life, but these random coven of witches can? And like, because he fails at it.
Right.
And so it's like, it's what I'm saying. It's like
when Plagius tells the story, he doesn't say that he fails, right? Plagius says
Plagueis doesn't
Sidious,
talk about,
when Sidious tells Plagius the story to Anakin, he says that he succeeds, right? That's what he says.
Yeah, let me back up. To be fair, the things I'm talking about are in that novel that are technically legends.
It's a newer novel, like since Disney.
It's part of Legends now. It's like right before Disney bought it.
Okay, well then.
So technically, you could throw all that out if you wanted to.
Well, am I wrong in saying that? Doesn't when Palpatine tells Anakin the story, doesn't he say he insinuates that he succeeds in figuring out how to prevent death or something?
Yes, how to prevent death, but not how to create life.
But that was never a part of that story, was it?
It wasn't.
That was added by the book. Is that what you're saying?
The book, yes. The book is what
that is now Legends that we can't rely on.
That is now Legends, but it is like, again, it's like the gospel. That one is it's so close to home. People are like, this is, and I get the criticism there. Like it's Legends, but either way,
listen, I love the Legends. I would pay a lot of money if they would just trade out all this stupid Disney canon and just go back to the Legends and be like, you know what we need? We need like the next movie to open up with Luke waking up from a really bad dream. and he's on
It's
he's
Disney
on
Plus is on the
Yavin
monitor.
4. He's on Yavin 4 with the Jedi Temple. Jason and Jaina Solo run in laughing. Uncle Luke, what are you gonna teach us today? You know what I mean? Like that's how I want the next.
He's watching Coruscant Plus on his monitor, and he was like, "Oh, I had a bad dream."
Oh
Yeah.
my
So no.
God.
Anyway, it's just like you're right in the fact that why would they want to create all these characters and create all these things when they had like Plagueis or Revan or Bane, particularly Plagueis, and
Yeah.
like, okay, we can start this character's journey and how he's corrupted by the dark side. And like it don't have to be
Yeah.
super complicated. It can be just good, like Game of Thrones, good writing,
Yeah.
well acted, and you see how he goes from who he is to where someone who wants to have the rule of two
Yeah.
and the Sith and Palpatine. And also, again, they did the thing too where supposedly Plagueis, in like according to everything we've done up to this point, Plagueis would have been like 17 or 18 in the cave. Like if you follow traditional Star Wars lore,
Well, then that can't be true, I guess, anymore. Because that is not a 17-year-old hand that was reaching out of that cave.
it was not. So I'm saying like they've done something. You know
Unless
what I'm
he's
saying?
like an alien creature, like
mean,
where he's. I mean,
he
he's not
is, but he's-
human, right? But
Yeah, he's a species.
even
Yeah,
then, it looks not young.
he's like a human with like a elongated head, kind of what they look
Okay.
like. But no, they made him look like Voldemort Sith kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I just I don't know, man. My fear is that we'll get a season 2. I will watch it, unfortunately, because I have to see where it's going, and also because I
Yeah.
want to discuss it. I just don't see a version of this where they can fix things, where like they've done so
No.
much damage narratively where I'm like, I don't care anymore.
It's so interesting. It's like
I'll be hate watching it probably.
they've done all this damage to their own characters and world, and you're right, they've not added anything or made anything more interesting about the movies we already have.
No, look at Obi-Wan
it-
Kenobi. Like
Huh?
it's like look at Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No, you're right.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
like what's cooler? The fight scene at the end of episode 3. What's cooler when Obi-Wan and Darth Vader meet in episode 4 and they have their conversations. That's better than the overall thing. Like they could have had a great story
Yeah.
there.
It's just
great
I
movie
think it
if
is.
they-
It just feels like it's really in some ways it's like I'm not. I wouldn't place the blame on necessarily the writers. Maybe they do have it, but I don't know if it's just an upper level like strategy decision. But it just to me in some ways feels like gutless storytelling that pretending it's risky. You know what I mean? That's like,
Yeah.
oh, Jedi's lied. Oh, Sith killed Jedi. Oh, you know what I mean? Like in these ways but then actually have no interesting ramifications on anything outside of this little bubble of a show in some ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
and I agree. Andor is the exception in this, but Mandalorian
oh, agreed.
works.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying Mandalorian works because it's playing. It's smart enough to know not to play with its own toys.
It's
Like,
it's
it's
not
not
trying to
dealing
be
with-
game changing. This is the universe will be different now. Like this is why
Yeah,
this
it's
is
its own
why
pocket.
this giant event happened. It's just no, it's a Western. It's a bounty hunter and a baby
yeah.
Yoda, and they're just doing their thing, and the stakes are their relationship.
And when the show got worse is when they introduced, which I loved it, and I still do, is when they introduced Luke and they didn't know how to get out of it.
and when they honestly in season 3, when now it's like, well, now it's all about Mandalore. It's not really about him and Yoda anymore. It's about this bigger other thing. It's this other, just it's all these other people are involved now, and the stakes are, he wasn't really the star, especially the second half of that season. It was more about what's her name?
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan. And anyway, it's just, yeah. Unfortunately, the show continued the pattern that we've been getting from Disney Star Wars of just they take one step forward and 10 steps back, and it just seems again like, I know we had promise with Ahsoka, and there are still things about that I'm excited to see followed up upon. You know what I mean?
I forgot about Ahsoka.
I know technically, what's his name was in Dave Filoni was an executive producer on this, but this also feels like this was in the works, had to be in the works long before he had the power he's in right now. And so
that's my hope. And
I've got to think that maybe if they'd already shot this or this was already in production, like they're not going to be like, we're not going to we're not gonna can this just if you don't like it.
Yeah.
You gotta see this one out. Hopefully that this doesn't have too many of his fingerprints on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think so. I think it's a case of like you're saying where it's like, hey, it's like when you ask someone to give you notes, but you're already 80% done with it, and you're like, I really just need a pat on the back kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they know that they have to have a blurb that says Filoni signed off on this, or fans are going to be like,
of
or
course,
turn on them.
I mean,
So-
yes. If they had said, hey, this was before Filoni's reign, essentially, like no one would have watched it. It would have been essentially like Blue Beetle, like in DC, where it's like,
Yes.
here's one more movie, but this actually isn't the James Gunn shit, so no one went to it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It would be the exact same situation, and I can see just for like people's careers, they said, let's not do that. Let's not.
Yeah, they're probably like,
You know
hey,
what I mean?
Dave,
And
we
you know what?
understand.
Fine.
But just take the hit on this.
I
one.
get that. I don't really care. As long as the next stuff is good, as long as like when Dave's finally in the driver's seat for real, we're getting good shit. You know,
I
we'll
still
see.
think they should reboot, man. I hope I see a reboot before I die. I just like I think
I just feel like they're doubling down at this point. I just don't see it anymore. And we're getting
the
more
Ray movie
movies.
scares me. That scares me.
Unless the Ray movie is a reboot, which, man, that would be a twist if she's only in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Woohoo! And then, like,
It
and
won't
then
be.
Luke
They're-
wakes up on Yavin 4. I'm kidding. But Yavin 4 is where like, in the Rebel bases on Yavin 4 in A New Hope.
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
Luke builds the new Jedi temple. So it's like,
Oh,
it's a fun
yeah.
callback.
I will say this to our listeners out there. I typically I do look at the live action stuff as canon, right? Like to me, that is almost the more important stuff. But if you are having a hard time with all these things, keep in mind the ultimate canon is episodes 1 through 6. Like that's what George made. Everything else, it forever will be as a form of fan fiction, even Dave Filoni stuff, unless George had his hand in it.
So, like, the first
And-
3 seasons of Clone Wars are technically canon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that, and then if you really just want to go to a place that I'd say most fans, I don't see them arguing with almost anything in Legends ever, actually. They all seem like they like the exploration. They like the Thrawn trilogy. They like, Plagueis story, the Darth Bane novel, the Darth Revan
Legends
novel.
had a lot of fans. A lot of fans.
Yeah.
It
So
did well.
if you're
Sold
wanting
well.
an alternate take and just pretend you're watching a movie or a TV show in your head, you can always go back and support those books.
Yep.
And
Yep.
by those really great writers.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Question. Did you see and this is probably more for next week's podcast. Last thing I'll say, did you see Deadpool Wolverine trailer, the new one?
I did, yep.
I was just watching. I turned it on, not because I knew what it was. I thought it was just like
Mhm.
some goofy ad.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept watching and I was like, oh, this is like a serious trailer all of a sudden. And then I was like, oh, this
Yeah.
is the final trailer. By the end of it, I realized what I'd watched was an actual trailer. And I was like, damn,
Mm.
way to get me hyped for next weekend, that trailer.
Oh yeah, look, it's great. I mean, I didn't feel like there was too much spoiled for me. I mean, I know we
No.
saw
No.
X confirmed, I guess, is the big
Yes,
one,
yeah.
right? That's the big
Yeah.
reveal for it.
Yeah.
And I guess we
That
saw the
one
villain
was.
for the first time, or one of the got more of the
We've
villain
seen-
at least.
We've got more of her. Yeah.
What is she
She's,
supposed to be? Who is she?
Her name's Cassandra Nova, and she is like either a female clone of Professor X or Professor X's twin sister. It's one of the two.
Oh, okay.
What's the difference, honestly, at that point? So it's so that's who she is. Supposedly the main villain. She could be a psych or a secret not villain.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But I'm curious. I think she
Kind of
is.
hope
She was like,
is, maybe.
well, I
fake
don't
out.
really love her as a villain, but
I just wish they would give us a name, like someone we know already, or like a bigger name. Like I'm just maybe jealous for like I want all the juicy stuff, but like
yeah. Well, I
give me
kinda thought she
Doom already.
wasn't.
Man, like if this could be Doom's I mean, I know it won't be, but like
Yeah.
that's the level of shit I want. But
Well, I thought that she was not going to be the main villain until this trailer because it looks like she's in the TVA at
Oh,
some
okay.
point, and I'm like, oh, you actually look like you're doing something important here, so you might be the main bad guy.
gotcha.
But I'll say that. So maybe that next weekend. Next week we're talking about Deadpool 2.
Mm-hmm.
Which have you watched yet?
Nope, not yet. I'm getting
Okay,
to it. Yep.
cool. I'll watch
Very
it
soon.
very soon before the pod.
Yep.
And last bit of news here it looks like the Russo brothers are coming back for Avengers 5 and 6, which is Secret
Mhm.
Wars. And the rumors that they're getting Marcus and McFeely to come back to do some rewrites. And I mentioned this in the pod yesterday. I think now their play is going to be Avengers versus X-Men.
Yeah, it makes the
I
most
think that's
sense.
it does now because they keep teeing up these old legacy X-Men characters. And I kind of forgot about I mean, that's what Secret Wars is these incursions. The
Right.
comic Avengers versus X-Men is absolute ass. It's garbage.
Sure.
And also the Age of Ultron comic was also ass and garbage, but they took the name for it, right? Age of Ultron sounded good for a movie. It became the title of the movie. Avengers versus X-Men is just it is what it is.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think it's a version of you have the Fox universe, maybe not, maybe this we'll get answers next week, but the Fox universe and the MCU universe colliding, and it's like whoever wins survives. That's the thing, right? It's not we want to fight each other, but we have to save our planet kind of thing,
Hmm.
which is interesting. It's like heroes literally fighting to the death because they don't want their family members and their family to die.
Well, they need to hurry
And
up if they're going to still use Patrick Stewart. He ain't got much left in the tank.
right. Well, it
So
makes sense though for that
it
this to
makes some
happen.
sense. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're right. That does make sense. I mean, I think after Deadpool 3, we'll have a better idea if that's true or
We'll
not,
have
right? Like,
a lot better idea.
how many X-Men actually survived this movie kind of thing, or
Yeah.
what do they do with them and that kind of thing. I mean, there's also the Fantastic Four that will be coming out, and like, isn't there's speculation that could be its own little universe, at least in the beginning, kind of thing, like that.
It is its own separate timeline from the MCU. Yes.
So I'm guessing the Fantastic Four will be involved in that, I'm sure, Battle World
100%.
scenario as well. And so
Yes.
and then, there's even pockets of the MC universe that wouldn't necessarily, there could be different groups even within the MCU superheroes. Like I'm not sure if I'm convinced it'll just be like X-Men versus MCU. Are there even enough X-Men versus the MCU? I mean, I feel like the MCU would have them outnumbered. At least as many of the X-Men we've been introduced to on screens before.
Well, MCU or Avengers. I mean, I think
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely see. I mean, we've already seen what there was reports that RDJ said he's willing to come back or whatever recently.
He's been pretty vocal the last couple months, and it seems like he's had
Yeah.
conversations with Feige because of those statements.
Well, it's like he went out on his little like, get me the Oscars, give me the
And he won it.
well, he was really going for an Emmy with that last show that he came out with, that like
Yeah, I know what you're talking
but I don't know, I don't think it's not been like racing away with reviews or anything. So maybe he's just ready to come back to the paychecks. But yeah, I mean, like, yes, I would love to see him come back, and having Reed Richards, Robert Downey, Iron Man, and Patrick, and Charles Xavier in the same room, and going off of each other. That sounds great. I can't,
I'm telling you right now, it will be Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, and Hugh Jackman in a scene together.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what you want. You want
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
That's what you want in Secret Wars, the movie, and maybe something else. But that's what you want. And yeah, I mean, Mr. Fantastic. If they do the most
the
recent Secret
sarcasm
Wars,
all around there. Yeah,
oh,
or
man,
even Human
that's
Torch
just
too.
great.
I could see a lot of sarcasm battles.
I think Chris Evans could be Human Torch in Deadpool Wolverine. I think we might see him.
Oh, yeah, I think that's very possible. Do you think
it's
Chris
very
Evans'
possible.
Cap comes back for this as well?
In
You
Secret
think
Wars,
they get all the originals?
100%.
Yeah,
I think the end of Avengers versus X-Men, you're going to see Old Man Cap, and he's going to say he's going to be like, I got to get back in the tube. That happens in the comics. Like he's old man, he's
he
running
goes back in
Shield.
time in some way.
No, he just gets like in this chamber.
Oh,
and
gets
makes
more
him-
super serum
Because
or something.
he's got the serum still in his body. He just has to
Yeah,
reactivate
okay,
it, and it makes him
yeah.
like he's still a little older, but he's like not 80 now. He's like probably 45-year-old.
Yeah.
He's got a little gray in him, but he still
Sure.
looks good. So
Sure. I get you. Yeah, it's like King Theoden. He
Yes.
goes from like decrepit skeleton man to like, you're old, but you can still hold your own kind of.
100%. That's a
Yeah.
great comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I'm super curious. And I guess last thing, Daniel, because I want to talk about some positive stuff. Because
Yeah, I get it.
It feels like we're on the upswing on MCU. Maybe depending on how next weekend goes.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the Brave New World trailer?
I liked it. I thought it looked like a political thriller kind of. It felt like it was a spiritual successor in some ways to Winter Soldier, right? And just that it's political. And in some ways I think it's following in the footsteps of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was very political. But this feels more like a thriller and feels more just I don't know. There's a lot of powers at play. There's a lot of gray area characters. I mean, we know we're getting Red Hulk. You know what I mean? So,
Harrison Ford Red Hulk.
yeah,
Never would have
yeah.
called that 10 years ago or 5 years ago or
No,
3 years
no.
ago.
And again, it's just like sometimes I'm like, man, he looks so old, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And honestly, I mean, playing a character like Hulk is literally the perfect casting for him because he doesn't have to pretend he's any younger or strong than he actually is. He can just
Yeah.
transform into the CGI thing, and then boom, it's great. It's a great way to include Harrison Ford. Like, I mean, what? 30 years ago, or who would Harrison Ford have been casted as in like proper mainline MCU? Like he can do the cocky shit. There's a version of him that could have been like Tony Stark, like a long time ago.
I don't know.
Like the
I
cocky,
had to think about
the cocky
that,
part
man.
at least what he would have done well.
What a casting. I had to think about that one. But
Yeah. Either way, I love me some Han Solo. Put him in everything. And so yeah, I think honestly Harrison Ford could have done a great like who am I thinking of? The head of Shield. If
Yeah,
they did
Nick Fury.
if they did a white version of Nick Fury, he would have
he would've
been
been-
a
he would've been
great
good.
Nick Fury.
he was my first thought when you asked the question, but I was trying to think of something harder. But
Sure.
did you
But
ever watch
anyway,
Shrinking with
I'm looking for-
Jason Segel and Harrison
I
Ford?
haven't. I've
Dude,
heard
you
good
would
things.
you would really like that show, I think.
Mm.
It's really good, and I love Harrison Ford and I like Jason
Sure.
Segel a lot too.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, one cool thing is like it looks like Tiamat, which is the celestial that was coming out of the Earth of Eternals. They're fighting around that in the ocean. there,
Hey, it's finally getting reference.
in the Atlantic. So it looks like they're trying to, fight over materials or resources or whatever he's providing.
Or maybe they're just actually acknowledging that the Eternals happened. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
maybe just a fight scene ends up happening there. It would almost be funnier if like there was no significance to being there than just happened, but we just wanted to
Yeah.
let you know Eternals did happen.
Yeah.
It'll be like the first reference to it since it came out, right?
Yes.
Within other
yes.
MCU properties.
Yes. I'm very fascinated. I'm very fascinated. And I
Yeah.
think it's next weekend. So next weekend is Deadpool Wolverine plus the Thursday before, which is this Thursday afternoon when the first showings are happening.
Uh-huh.
Marvel's going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. They're having a panel both Thursday and Saturday. And so they're having a special Deadpool panel on Thursday with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. We might get some information there, so we might need to not look at anything because we might spoil the movie for us before we watch it.
Sure.
And then Saturday they're supposed to announce like the big, like all the movies that we didn't know were coming in between Secret Wars and now. I guarantee you they'll announce the director of Avengers 5 and 6,
Yeah.
which it really probably will be the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
They've been very vocal since Endgame that they want to do Secret Wars, and their other stuff hasn't been working out for them very well.
Nope.
And I think they need each other, like you said yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think Saturday we're going to get a clearer direction, and hopefully next week's movie reignites the fan base. And I think it might. I think it might do it.
Yeah. I'm
It
excited.
might live up to the hype.
I'm hoping.
Anyway, how can listeners write into us, Daniel?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail if you would like to talk to us about your feelings about the Acolyte or any of this fun MCU news. Let us know. Tell us your thoughts. bit.ly/241mail.
And if you can't hit us up at our Bitly, you can always find us in the comment section below, youtube.com/@241studios. Daniel, it's fun talking Star Wars, even if Star Wars is painful to talk about sometimes. And I'm
It is.
hoping Skeleton Crew is good. And then I'm hoping all the other projects after that are good as well. And hopefully we can see the light
In Bologna we trust.
at the end of this dark side tunnel. My name is Donovan Thompson,
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.